Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Roll Pod Reaction, coming off Alabama's thrilling, probably can use a lot of different adjectives to describe it, but Alabama's win over Auburn in Jordan-Hare Stadium, 27-20. I've already stopped. It was a quick turnaround. I'm tired. I have to admit.
It was a weird game. You're allowed to be off your game.
It was I'm certainly off my game, but I need to get back on it because it's early sign period coming up. But again, Alabama up 17-0, blew the lead 20-20, ended up winning 27-20. Kind of, I'm thinking about it. It's like the Alabama defense comes up big again. That's been the case all year. Alex, we'll start with you. Just biggest takeaways.
It's a continuation of a trend for this team. They like playing with fire, or either that or they're just not demonstrably more talented than the other team. And I think it's a little bit of both. We've talked about it a lot about, how this roster is good, but it's not great. And I think in games like this, you just don't have a lot of guys who can take over. You did have Isaiah Horton pop off. Really, that's what we've been waiting on all season. I don't think we were waiting on 3 touchdown game, and that kind of, return on investment. Every pass he caught was a touchdown, felt like. So that was a bright spot. Jam Miller running the football was a very bright spot. Then you have the injury there. It's just it's a hard game to pin down because it felt like there were moments where the defense was playing well and moments where they struggled. There were moments where the offense was moving the ball right, and then they struggled. They couldn't find a rhythm. And Jordan-Hare is a place where that happens to a lot of good Alabama football teams, and I think that's why ultimately you just take the win and move on. But you also know that the margin for error in the SEC championship game, it's not 0, but it's not a lot. So very curious, like Kalen DeBoer sort of said, how they respond to this one and how they get back up for yet another big game, because it's been, 2.5 months of big games. And either they've got all the body armor they need to be tested and ready to go, or do they wear down at some point? We're going to find out.
They lost the middle 8.
Yeah.
So all these coaching cliches, they didn't do their 1/11th on some of their plays. And it just, I don't know. It kind of felt like the opposite of the Oklahoma game. They lost the yardage battle, but they won the turnover battle. Whereas the Oklahoma game, they won the turnover battle. Sorry, they lost the turn. It's a really quick turnaround for me too. They lost the turnover battle, and they won the yardage battle in the Oklahoma game. So it's kind of the opposite. And you had a couple of turnovers that, Auburn's driving down, and they have the pass off the hands of whoever it was, and Bray intercepts it. And then you have the Cam Coleman fumble at the end of the game as well. So in both cases, Auburn, was threatening to score. So that probably is where the game was decided, in those turnovers. So the overall product was not great. I agree. The running game looked better. Passing game is still a struggle and just seems to be getting more and more confined. You had your really deep ball from Ty that he didn't hit. That was kind of a continuation there. Mm-hmm. But, defensively, you could say they played well, and then they gave up 2 explosive plays, which they really haven't done in a while. Probably going back to Vandy and Mizzou, I think of those explosive plays. So it's like you did some things well, you didn't do some things well. You had a chance to put them away. And like I said, the middle 8 was not kind to you in terms of Auburn getting the field goal and then getting the quick touchdown to start the second half. And that it was kind of, game on from there. Whereas there's been a lot of games this year where Alabama scored right before halftime and then scored again, in the second half, and completely different game in this case. So at the end of the day, doesn't matter. I don't know if it's not a super memorable Iron Bowl as far as I've covered. It's not in the Hall of Fame of Iron Bowls, but it's a win. And, that keeps you alive, whereas a loss would have been fatal. So that's all that really matters right now. But the game itself was, again, I think continuation of a theme is probably good way of putting it. There's a lot of things that have been happening, continue to happen, with the exception of the running game looking a little bit better, especially earlier on.
And the kicking game, and Connor Talty not being a liability. Now that we can
punting game all of a sudden,
yeah,
became a liability.
Yeah, trade off.
Right.
We can talk about whether that 4th and 2 call and whether that was belief in the offense versus disbelief in what you've seen Connor Talty. But the fact that he could go into Jordan-Hare Stadium and make 2 field goals, including that 45-yarder, gives you a little bit of hope moving forward. Mike looks like he has thoughts.
No, I was just looking. I can't find it right now. Sorry, I was looking at the box score.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just, where's the second half rushing? Quarter, half, second half rushing yards, 60. They were averaging 3.2 yards a carry in the second half rushing. And now that includes some sacks, but they're averaging 5.2 in the first half. So they were better running the ball earlier on. And who would have thunk it? Jan Miller getting hurt apparently was not favorable, because you lost basically your MVP in the game up until that point. And I think by the end of the game, Isaiah Horton's probably your MVP, but that's a hell of a stat line. 5 catches, 35 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's your red zone guy, because of his height, and some of those balls where Ty is kind of moving around and just trying to fire it in there. He's been your guy for that sort of play. So he's been valuable, in that regard. Obviously it's been quiet for him for probably a month plus, but this was his best, loudest game, if you will, in a little while.
It continues to blow my mind that Ty can make these difficult passes, like that first one to Horton, where he's under pressure and just throws it in the perfect spot. And then when guys are open, either like that throw to Pritchett where you got to catch that, but also he threw it like 1,000 miles an hour, 6 yards. And it's just, I think he's just in his own head a little bit with some of these throws. And I think that's part of why the offense isn't clicking. I think ultimately a lot of it is the offensive line, and, give Auburn credit. They got some guys up front who can ruin your day. Kendrick Falk is, if that dude's not a top 10 pick, I don't know who is. I mean, he ate Caden Proctor's lunch, and then he ragdolled Daniel Hill, which is not easy to do. Like I would pick him right now. But at the same time, like that line is just, it's off. And it's, Parker Brailsford coming in and out hurts you. It's interesting to me. They didn't really rotate. They've finally gone away from that. It's probably a good thing as you go into the home stretch. But yeah, there's just something not clicking with this team. And again, like you can recognize it's a good win, but man, now you got to beat Georgia 2 in a row. And that's hard to do, man, in one season. So very curious again, how they bounce back from this and just, survive in advance. But now you got to do a little bit more, knowing what's at stake on Saturday.
Let's not forget they might have to beat Georgia 3 times.
Yeah.
It's still on the table.
Yeah.
So,
that's true. I know that we've been talking about it on here and on our site for the last couple of weeks. The offense hasn't looked, something's off. I think there's something to be said. The missing of Cuevas is pretty big. I think both with how reliable he is. I think the trust that Ty has in him, be able to dump it off, things like that. I think we saw that kind of really kind of show that last night. And to your point, Alex, the rotation, I'm looking at Mike's snap guy. I think aside from Parker Brailsford, when he missed a little bit of time, it was just Gino. I don't think they rotated at all any other. So it seems like they kind of finally found their group, their grouping. Now the staff has shown its willingness to rotate, very frequently, extremely. So we'll see if that carries over, but it seems like they found their unit.
I'm also curious on the defensive side of the ball. Has Red Morgan taken that job? I know Deshaun Jones is dealing with that clubbed hand, and he had to come in that game. But I really like what I see out of Red. He just seems like a guy who will make a play on the football. I thought he played well. I thought the linebackers at times played well. The defensive line, people need, I think, if you're going to crush Freddie Roach for the first 2 months of the season, I think you need to say they're playing pretty well lately. They're not a bunch of studs up front, but they affected the quarterback pretty well last night, and they're doing pretty good work. If you take away, those explosive plays, it probably looks a lot better. I know that's kind of, can't take it away. It obviously happened. But I thought they did a better job up front. And that was the biggest question to me going into this game is, could you get to Daniels? Could you kind of not let him run freely? And for the most part, I thought they did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah. I mean, he finished with 108 yards rushing, but they were running him. It was every first down. They just kind of decided we're going to take 2, 3, 4 yards if we can. Yeah. Try to make it easier. Just run him right into the line. And they've done a pretty good job. I mean, against several teams in a row now, they haven't really allowed guys to break free. And those 2 big plays that Auburn had, I don't think are really on, the line or the front 7 even. So it was a missed tackle really by Xavier Mincy in the second one. I would have to go back and check the first one. But I don't know, just you look, it's like 8 penalties for 87 yards, 4 of 17 on third downs. It was 3 of 3 on fourth downs, especially the goal line one to Horton that, just balls to the wall in terms of
how many coaches on the planet would have done that. I mean, that's just coaching on tilt. And
how much is Connor Talty factoring into that? I think somewhat, but I think Kalen's still wired to go for it there. And he's right. Like, worst case scenario, you don't score, you back up Auburn. They're not an offense that, notwithstanding the 2 big plays that they had, that you're too afraid of going, 98 yards, whatever it was. But yeah.
So Alex supported about the defense. We'll probably just be jumping back and forth all around on this episode. And I thought Xavier Brown had an incredible game. There's been some times this season where it's, maybe he's gotten beat or things like that, but I think he had a very good game. There was one drive in particular. He made I think 2 or 3 tackles on the game in that one drive. Dijon Lee has certainly taken over that other spot, and then some. Damani played a little bit. We got a Cam Calhoun sighting
for that long.
Like a most egregious way. I mean, it was I think that video might be shown in officials handbooks or video intros of
there were a bunch of near targeting calls too.
And you could argue
touchdown run,
that was one. You could argue the one on Ty that it was iffy, but obviously they got that called.
By the letter that was targeting, but that was one where it's just man, I have a hard time putting that on the player.
But the Ty touchdown run, that was Horton's penalty.
Yeah.
They called back. So I guess if there was a targeting, it would have been offsetting.
Yeah.
So replay the down, but it would have, resulted in an ejection, I guess. So not a game-changing penalty, but probably missed one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back to the offense, guys. That we're jumping around.
Auburn's 5 drops. People think Alabama's rough with Ryan Williams.
That's all they had was 5. It felt like
that's according to stat broadcasts, which I don't know what PFF might say they have 20.
Well, they had kind of juggles on a couple punts and kicks, but the one to Bray, it looked like I can't remember what receiver it was, but it looks like it was a bump set volleyball. I don't even know. He put water on his glove and shot up, but Bray continued to come up big. Deontay Lawson was talking about it. It was he said it was his 3rd time that Bray's forced a fumble and he's recovered it. Obviously, that was a big moment for Deontay Lawson. I didn't know this. He grew up an Auburn fan, but he said he had to make a business decision, went to Alabama and ends his career 5-0. But you guys mentioned it right there. Back to the offense. Ryan Williams, it was okay. Maybe he's used as a decoy kind of earlier this year. Now it's I don't even know. And then you look at Jeremy, he gets, Mike was talking about in the press box. I think he had, I don't know what he ended up with, but 6 targets, but 1 catch. 3 of those, I think, were on the first drive. So and Alex said on the show, the passing game's kind of getting, I don't know what the right word is, but it's you can kind of key in on these guys. I don't really know what to think of Ryan right now. And
10 targets for 3 catches for Jeremy. Now, if you go back and look, some of those are probably throwaways from Ty when he was under pressure that technically were targets, but he was just looking for a receiver to avoid a grounding call.
Right.
But even then, it's not been a particularly electric second half of the season for Jeremy Bernard. It feels like the receivers that they like the most, though, are him, Horton, and Brooks. And it's just kind of that's the guys they're trying out there. And Ryan was out there for still a decent amount of snaps, 36, but and there might be an injury component there. I mean, he's not on the availability report. He was dealing with something earlier this season. Is he fully healthy? Probably not. Is anybody this time of year? Probably not. I think it's just a combination of hasn't really been performing. The coach and the quarterback probably are more comfortable right now with some other guys based on what we've seen. And it's just not coming together in the way that some people predicted. But those predictions were all based on kind of the excitement of the beginning of Ryan Williams' career, maybe a couple games this year too, but it's still a case of like the expectations outpacing kind of the reality. So in that way, he's still a victim of expectations because he has a game like this where he doesn't get targeted and people are asking about it. Whereas if, there's a game where Brooks doesn't get targeted, I don't know if people are really talking about it. It's just it's how it's kind of framed because of who Ryan Williams is. But it's
if you would have told me in November, and listen, I was a giant fan of Lasir Brooks going in, but if you were to tell me he was going to outsnap Ryan Williams in the Iron Bowl, I would have told you you're crazy. But like you said, they're showing a lot of trust. They have shown a lot of trust in Lasir Brooks, and Ryan Williams just wasn't targeted. He wasn't a factor. And it's, again, I'm a huge fan of him. He everybody is, but it just, something is off, and I can't put my finger on it at all.
This is going to be an enormous off season for him, and I know there's the whole playoff thing on top of all this, but you got it. Like we're sitting there, and I catch myself looking at, oh my God, there's one-on-one coverage with Ryan Williams, and it's not a threat. Like you're not even trying to just throw in the ball and see what happens, which is sort of inconceivable. I know that Horton had a really good game, but it's just a little surprising to me. We remember a year ago that Tennessee game where people got mad that they were force feeding him. I feel like maybe you got to try to get him going, because if you can, maybe you can get a little bit more offense into it. But that's what gives credence to what Mike said, is maybe there's an injury component to it. Maybe he's just not right, and they're going to use him sparingly, which they are, and hope that in the offseason he can get right, and in a money year as a junior can go to the draft and everything sort of clicks. But yeah, it is, especially in an in-state game with a kid who grew up obviously as part of the Iron Bowl lore, and Auburn wanted him to go there along with everybody else. Just a bizarre, it felt like a culmination of a weird season. Now granted, it's not over, there's still an opportunity to sort of rewrite that. But a culmination of a weird regular season where the guy who was supposed to be everything for you, like we weren't, let's remember, we weren't talking about Ty Simpson as a Heisman Trophy contender going into the season. We were talking about Ryan Williams as face of the program.
Yep.
Face of college football. It's just not there. And I'm sure we'll get some explanations why at some point, whether it's this week, on and on down the road. I feel like it's probably more off-season material, but it's a weird day when Alabama goes into the Iron Bowl and there's one-on-one coverage and they're not even trying to get Ryan Williams a football. It doesn't look like.
Mike, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, it's
weird. It's just weird.
Right.
I don't know how to describe it.
It's a more spread out receiver room. Like I was just looking at the total stats. I mean, remember last year it was very condensed in terms of the stats between Jeremy and Ryan, and you had guys like Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, et cetera, that were outside of that, but were pretty sparsely used. Now you legitimately have 4 guys. So I think just by virtue of that to begin with, there's not nearly as much attention for Ryan Williams. But to what Alex was saying, maybe that in theory should have helped Ryan Williams, that it gives him some one-on-one opportunities, and just they're not looking to those.
Because you know what? It was very clear when Auburn got one-on-one with Cam Coleman, they're throwing Cam Coleman the freaking football. And I'm not saying be Auburn's offense, because you basically never want to do that.
Don't do that.
But at the same time, it's shocking to see one guy who's a star receiver who's shown it and whose offense is built more or less, the passing game is built more or less around how they can get him the football. And then to look at Alabama, which has just gone away from that. I don't know that they were ever like, we have to get Ryan the football. Yes, there was that Tennessee game, but they wanted to be more balanced this year. They have the players. But to see Ryan free fall from your top player, then in the beginning of the season, go, oh, everybody realized Jeremy Bernard's the better receiver, to, oh, Isaiah Horton's pretty good, to, oh, Lazio Brooks is pretty good. He's your fourth receiver. And he's still immensely talented. And I know the big deal is that Alabama won this football game and kept its playoff hopes alive, is going to play for an SEC championship. But we can't have all this hype around Ryan Williams. We can't have him on the cover of, NCAA football and then just not talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely right. You have to talk about the good and the bad. That's our job. I'm trying to think. I mean, we could talk about this game forever. Anything that we feel like we need to certainly hit on, because we're going to talk about it felt like we're going to talk about the college football playoff in a second, but anything else kind of coming out of
I would say the big story, and we'll talk to Kalen later today, Sunday. The two injuries obviously to watch this week are Cuevas and Jam Miller. And Cuevas was on a scooter before the game, in Auburn with a boot on his foot. So just tea leaves there. It doesn't seem particularly strong that he'll play when a guy's on a scooter, 6-7 days before the next game. Jam was on crutches after the game. He really couldn't put weight on that foot when he was coming off the field. Needed a couple guys to help him off. So just, again, considering the position that he plays and all that, my guess right now is that he's probably not in great shape to play against Georgia. But we'll have to see what Kalen says and all that. Again, people have been clamoring for AK Deer. He got one snap. It was a screen pass to him. Yeah. And if you're already down Kevin Riley, and we don't know exactly what the timeline is on him either, then you're down to Daniel Hill and AK Deer, assuming that you've cast off Richard Young and Dre Washington, which it seems to be the case.
You have.
So maybe this is a chance for AK Deer.
It's a big deal injury because we're talking about a starter, and it's a big deal because Jam did have a good day. At the end of the day, that's his first good day in a lot of days, and I still like what I saw from Daniel Hill. He still runs the football really hard. It's still hard to bring down, and this is not going to be a rushing-oriented offense. It's just not going to happen. So as long as you get enough from him, and I think fans have been clamoring for AK Deer for a long time, maybe your wish will be granted, and he gets 5, 6, 7 snaps, whatever the case may be.
Might be more than that.
Yeah, it might be more than that. It's would you like Jam Miller? Yes. I don't think, if we're going to put it in betting parlance, I don't think it moves the line. I think Cuevas is more important, and I wouldn't be overly optimistic either that he's going to be available. The hope is that you can win this game and have a first-round bye, and then you've got an extended break where maybe you can get him back for your start of the playoffs.
Yeah. Just while we're on injuries, I know Parker Bresford came in, ended up playing the rest of the game, but it didn't look particularly good, kind of hobbling off. I think I joked with Alex in the press box, kind of that Jeff Allen magic or voodoo or whatever. So maybe that might be one to monitor as well.
According to Yale, Alabama, he had a bloody shin from getting kicked or rolled up on, wherever the case may be.
So he'll be very sore for a while.
Right.
Very sore.
Like the rest of the roster will be. Yeah. Anything defensive injuries?
James Smith got briefly banged up. Obviously, Deshaun's dealing with the club. Red Morgan left right before halftime.
Looked like a shoulder.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you said he was in a sling after the game?
Yeah, I think so. It's what it looked like to me, yeah.
Okay.
But he came back and played in the game, so I don't think it was a thing he worked through, but probably more just, hey, let's just take it easy.
Besides that, defensively.
That's the thing people need. This is neither here nor there, but this is one of those games where we could, because of Alabama, the visitors setup, you can see a lot more for the media. There's an entire table of just protective boots, just a whole table. That's the thing. I think fans, they see photos of a guy in a boot and oh my God, freak out. Like, I think trainers, if they could, they put everybody in boots and stuff. Just be like, go in a cryotherapy and we'll fly you to Alabama. It's just one of those things that stood out to me. It's just kind of run of the mill, especially this late in the season. Everybody's hurt.
Oh yeah,
everybody who plays.
That's a good point. If you're a student on campus at Alabama or anywhere, and you're near that, so there's guys walking in boots that have they're fine, but they're walking in boots all the time. One thing I did
being hurt and injured.
Right. It felt like the Quay Rousseau return. I'm just looking at the snap totals, trying to create some conversation. Obviously, Yonze Pierre 53 snaps, Quay Rousseau 19 snaps. That kind of felt like what we expected. I mean, Yonze Pierre earned that role, earned that extended.
Interesting how that is flipped, because entering the year, it was like Quay Rousseau was the big breakout candidate. Gets hurt, and then Yonze kind of takes his job, and then Yonze now all of a sudden is on Mel Kiper's list for the draft. And
I don't think it's going to flip, but I think Quay will play significantly more against Georgia because of the way their offense functions.
Yeah.
Right. And they want to play more physical, and Yonze is less of a physical presence than Quay is. I really like Yonze. He gets after the quarterback. He's going to play more than Quay in all likelihood. But I think we'll see more of Quay just as a guy who can set the edge, because they lost that. Jamarian Latham was that guy that they were counting on to do that. I think Quay sort of becomes that, even if he's not 100%. Just because he's playing doesn't mean he's 100%.
Yeah. 100%. Anything else on the 90th Iron Bowl before we get into some CFP talk?
No, we got to let Mike cook. Mike has CFP thoughts. You saw him like 4 hours of sleep. I see him to go get breakfast. He's immediately hitting me with CFP thoughts.
Right.
Before
we're waiting for our hoe cakes.
Before you cook, I think I did want to bring up, Kalen DeBoer was asked, is your team a playoff team? And I think his response was, Alex and I talked about it coming out while Mike was writing it up. That was kind of the most pointed he's been, I think, about anything. Mike, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seemed like that was the most he's
right.
Yeah. I mean, I love Kalen, but he couldn't tell us his favorite Thanksgiving side. But when it was playoff time,
right,
guys, this would shock me if we're not a playoff. Like, what are we even talking about here? And I don't blame him, but go ahead.
And yeah, I mean, it's almost like automatic. It's like coaches have to do that. There's like a handbook somewhere on how to be a head coach in college football, and like page 77, it's like, here's how you talk about your playoff case. Yeah. You have to be authoritative. You have to talk about it in very strong, direct terms, and that's what he did. And look, I'm sure he believes it internally too, but like that's what you have to say publicly and really make the argument like you're a defense attorney in a courtroom. And
he should have brought it would be a disservice.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, again, Sark did it. I didn't see what Clark Lee said after the game. I'm assuming that he was asked about it. There's other coaches, I'm sure, BYU, et cetera, Miami, Cristobal, like they're all going to be doing that if I haven't done it already. So it's the most wonderful time of the year.
ESPN producers going, how do I field all these phone calls and get them on my shows?
Right. Oh yeah. It's a politicking time of year, but look, at the end of the day, there's three things that really need to be figured out right now. The most immediate is where teams are ranked tomorrow night or Tuesday night. And that's, Alabama's not going to move up. They're at 10. Nobody lost in front of them. There's no reason for them to move up. I don't think they're going to move down, but part of me still wonders a little bit because you have kind of that group of teams, and they always talk about these pods that they examine teams in. I think Alabama's in there with Notre Dame, and we already know that. I'm assuming BYU is probably in that pod now, if they haven't already. And then there's Miami, and Miami had a pretty strong win against a team that the committee respects, a ranked team, Pitt, on the road, 38-7. And Miami has the head-to-head over Notre Dame. And then you start talking about Texas's win against A&M. You start talking about Vandy and their win over Tennessee. Now, the good thing for Alabama is that they have the head-to-head over Vandy. But I think there's going to be a pod of like 4 or 5 teams that are currently between like 9 and 13, 9 and 14. Do they keep the same order? Do they switch things up? Is it out of the realm of possibility that Alabama moves down a spot after a very shaky Iron Bowl? I don't think it's out of the possibility. I don't think it happens, but it's going to be interesting to see how they set it up Tuesday night, because how they set it up Tuesday night kind of determines how things go Saturday.
Yeah.
If Alabama's already out of the field at 11 going into the SEC championship game, then it's not a case of staying in. It's a case of you lose the game, you're not going to move into the field. So if the committee wants to avoid the nuclear debate around a potential Alabama loss, do they move Alabama out of the field right now to set that up? And that's how this stuff works sometimes. But it's twisted, man. There's a lot of kind of lefts and rights to look at there between Miami's head-to-head win over Notre Dame and the common opponent, Miami and Florida State and Alabama. They have in Florida State. So it's going to be a fun week for Twitter and debates and pundits and talking heads.
Not going to be a fun week for Hunter Yurachek. Not going to be fun.
It's definitely not. And he should probably cut out the 6-7 jokes this week because this is serious business. Yeah. But yeah, assuming they stay put at 10, then you're going into the SEC championship game needing to stay at 10 if you lose to stay in the field. Mm-hmm. And again, that's a question itself. There's not really a precedent for that. Last year was a little bit different. SMU having 1 loss going to 2 with a close loss to Clemson. Alabama having 2 losses going to 3 is at a different calculus for the committee. This hasn't happened. So there's no precedent. And even now, the whole setup is still different than it was last year with the format. So if you win, that's the third question. If you win the game against Georgia, because this team, has beaten Georgia a lot, are you guaranteed to be in the top 4? By the rules of the format, you no longer are. So last year,
right? That's crazy to me. And Mike, you're our expert on this panel, but
I've always said for the last 4, 5, 6 weeks that I almost certain, virtually guaranteed. I've tried to use strong terms without being completely
right,
100%. But then you go and read Heather Dinich this morning, who says that would they still be ranked behind Oklahoma if they win the SEC championship game? So that you have this weird situation where, in theory, Alabama is one of the 2 best teams in the SEC because of their SEC record, because they were 7-1. But in terms of the playoff, when you're looking at all 12 games, 13, they have the non-conference loss that A&M doesn't have, that Ole Miss doesn't have, that Georgia doesn't have, that Oklahoma doesn't have. So are they one of the 2 best teams in the SEC regular season as a whole? I don't know. But I would think that a reasonable mind, if Alabama beats Georgia for a second time, is going to put them ahead of Georgia. And you would think that by virtue of winning the SEC and going 11-2, that they should be ahead of A&M at 11-1 and Ole Miss at 11-1 and Oklahoma at 10-2, even with the head-to-head loss. But I don't know. Nobody knows. It's incongruent to have this SEC championship game, but also have the playoff separate. It just doesn't make sense anymore. In the way that we're looking at this, in a perfect world, yes, your 2 best teams in the regular season, it would have been Georgia and A&M would have played in the SEC championship game like last year, Georgia and Texas. Like, that's easy to figure out. This is not an easy to figure out situation because of Alabama's loss to Florida State. So I don't know where they would be ranked if they win the SEC championship game. I feel like, in very strong terms, I think they're going to be a top 4 seed if that happens. You avoid having to play a first-round playoff game. If that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But if you lose, I cannot guarantee that they're going to stay in the field. I think you have to look closely at the Big 12 championship game. If BYU beats Texas, then you're in deep trouble. Even if BYU loses to Texas, you still have to wonder about Miami. I don't know. I don't know where they're going to be ranked tomorrow, Tuesday night. I keep saying tomorrow. I don't even know what day it is. I don't know what the committee's doing.
Nuts.
I generally have been pro-committee because I feel like they have a tough job. But I'm not sure by the end of this week I'm going to be pro-committee because I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. One of their tough job. You can try being good at it. This is so stupid. I mean,
that's where I also come to the conclusion.
So dumb. It's like, how can it both things be true? Everything you're saying is right. How can it be true that if you lose the SEC championship game, you're out of the playoff, but if you win it, you're a top 4 seed?
That's what I was about to say.
For an extra game.
Yep.
Why are we doing this? This is so dumb.
Right.
Like, don't play an extra game. In what galaxy do you need an extra game for anything in the playoffs? You're already getting multiple SEC teams in. You're only crowning an SEC champion because you think it matters. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Like, just get over this. This is stupid. And in some ways, I do feel for the committee because they're having to deal with it when it should matter.
Right. It would be like in baseball having
Yeah.
the NL East have a championship game to determine who goes in the playoffs. And then because your first and third place team in the NL East had the best conference or the best division records, but maybe not the best overall records, that the Mets and the Phillies play each other in the NL East championship game, even though the Braves won the NL East. It's like it doesn't make any sense. Like how they have it right now.
Dumb. Alabama fans are, if they don't get in, they're going to say we had 4 wins over ranked opponents in a row. Well, you actually don't anymore. You're only going to have 2.
Right. If Tennessee falls out, that's another ranked opponent.
And nothing changed for Alabama. And those are still good teams. Like, you can look at Alabama, and that's why I almost wish the committee would just say that's a playoff team. Like, it'd be like, it's like the hot or not thing. Hot or not. You don't have to explain why. There's just a bar, and you're either above it or you're below it. And Alabama is above it. The end.
Playoff Tinder?
Yeah, playoff Tinder. Swipe right, swipe left, whatever. Like, get and you know what? You don't need a date before the date. You just go on the date.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't need to pit the 2 hottest girls against one another. It doesn't change anything. They're still both hot. All right. Like, the stupid SEC championship. You don't need to go to Atlanta to do anything. Go to Atlanta and hand out awards. Who cares? Or let Vanderbilt play somebody else and they can play to get in. Like, Georgia shouldn't have to play in this game either. Like, they've already clawed back from when everybody said they were going to be terrible again. They're a really good football team. They've got nothing to lose but seeding. They got nothing to gain, but they can lose seeding and injured players. That's all they can do in this game.
What if Georgia what if Georgia loses to Alabama in the SEC championship game and then beats them in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta again?
And it'd be dumb.
Again.
Yeah. So stupid. This sport is just bonkers dumb.
Right.
Like, and it almost feels like the only thing that will change it is if Alabama is the sacrificial lamb that loses an SEC championship game, and Greg Sankey and everybody loses their minds and says we're blowing up the playoff. Right. And I think ultimately that is Alabama's best bet, is that this we need to remember this playoff has a gun to its head. And the SEC and the Big Ten have their finger on the trigger, and they can change it when they want to. So, ultimately, how much is the SEC willing to put its foot down over a game that shouldn't even be playing? And it's all on the table, to Mike's point. These are all hypotheticals because there's no train of logic, and there's an extra game that shouldn't matter, and college football is dumb and beautiful and glorious and mostly dumb.
And again, to y'all's points, and we've said it the last couple of weeks too, there is going to be recency bias, just like there is in anything. This committee's going to sit down, they're going to watch this game, and then they're going to go bet.
And why shouldn't they? They're all going to watch the game. Should they just ignore it?
Right. So what I'm saying, is there a huge difference if Alabama, assuming a lot, let's assume is like a 13-point loss for a 6-point loss. Is that going to be, do you think that's I think difference?
Yeah, I think I think they're going to be inclined to keep Alabama in to keep everybody happy and keep the playoff structure as is. But a 13-point loss, I think you're out. I don't even think there's much debate. I think you've got to keep it a touchdown or less. And I even think that is dicey, to Mike's point, because Miami, say what you want about their strength of schedule, and we can say a lot of words. They just beat the tar out of Pitt. And for some reason, this committee just loves to talk about how good Pitt is because their little, device that they use for their arguments is now, Pat Narduzzi, who doesn't care about playing Notre Dame.
I thought you were going to go Pat McAfee.
Are we even sure that Alabama's going to be ranked ahead of BYU Tuesday night? BYU's strength of record right now is number 6. Somehow.
They have 1 win over a ranked opponent.
Alabama only has 2. Tennessee falls out of the top 25, and Alabama will only have 2.
Well, this committee has shown it cares about the losses. And again, it was in real time a bad loss at Florida State. I watched a 3-8 Florida team demolish Florida State. So I think there's no question Alabama probably has the worst loss in the country, but also at the same time may have the best win in the country.
Yeah,
at Georgia, and I'm just
no. I think it's between them and Indiana over Oregon, but Indiana's a lock. I mean,
Yeah.
Just it's asinine. It really is. It's asinine.
I mean, to your point, Alex, you said it for you.
I said a year ago, get rid of the SEC.
Your word. You said it. It's not just Alabama being in it. You said that for regardless of who's going to be in it. You've held true to your guns, and I'm starting to.
At the end of the day, like there are teams that should be able to say, like, why isn't Ole Miss in an SEC? If you're going to have an SEC championship game, why aren't they in it?
This is going to be tougher than last year for the committee. I think last year it really boiled down to Alabama SMU, and we knew that going into the final week. It's not going to be that easy this time, and there's just no games left to really change anything. It's just the SEC. It's the title game. So,
and I feel bad for Miami.
I feel bad for Vandy. Vandy's a good football team, man. They lost on the road at Alabama and Texas.
Yeah.
And Texas by 3. Alabama, they kind of screwed themselves with the turnovers in the red zone. But they just went and beat Tennessee on the road by a pretty good margin.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and they're 10-2. And everybody at the beginning of the season, you say a 10-win SEC team, oh, yeah, you're in the playoff. They're probably not.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And Clark Lee's done a damn good job for a program that's been awful for a long time. And yeah, like if you want to feel bad for somebody, it's them. I know people have their thoughts on Diego Pavia, but for Vandy overall, like that's a tough break.
Take me to New York.
Per Matt Zenitz, Arkansas is targeting Memphis's Ryan Silverfield to be its new head coach.
Really?
Yeah. Another year at Kane Womack. It's a win for Alabama.
Ryan Silverfield is leaving Memphis for Arkansas, according to Ross Dellinger.
Yeah.
There we go. That's the real-time updates right there, one after the other. Trying to think what else here. I think Mike and I were laughing last night. The opening line came out for Georgia, Alabama. Georgia's -1.5. Just looked again, still at -1.5. That seems.
It seems right. It seemed right every single time.
They've pretty much nailed. I think before kickoff, Alabama ended up going to a touchdown favorite. I think in the Iron Bowl, like right before it. So they nailed that. Vegas always knows. -1.5 seems. I'm interested to see kind of the movement back and forth, just how much people maybe hammer Bama and they look at the history, but also you already beat Georgia once, so but it seems like they nailed that. I don't know if there's any commentary for that, but
no, it seems right. I mean, you're talking about two teams we think of in big pictures going in not opposite directions, but Georgia's ascending and had a really good second half of the season. Alabama's just kind of teetered along, and you give them credit for what they did during the middle part of the season, but it hasn't looked right. So I think if you watch the games, I think it's fair to say Georgia should be a favorite of this game, but I think they should be a very slight favorite because at the end of the day, I think styles make fights, and I think in a way I feel better about playing Georgia than I would A&M because A&M just presents different challenges up front on defense and just having a quarterback who's that athletic and those receivers that A&M has. I know they lost to Texas, but that's a very talented football team. And Georgia's just, in a way, I think Alabama's built to have more success against a team like that. But I think the line is right. I still think Georgia's probably, 1.5, 2-point favorite.
Yeah. I would be very interested in Alex, you brought this up, but like to hear Kirby's real unfiltered take, like, do you want to play in this game? I don't know. I mean, he's going to say yes.
No.
But I don't think so. And then you throw in the Alabama factor and the history there. It's just I don't know why you would want to play in this game. So I've definitely jumped on the Alex bandwagon.
They got nothing to win. They're going to go from 4 to 3. Doesn't change anything for them.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Well, anything else? We got a loaded show like we figured it would be. Alabama coming off 27-20 win. A busy week. Go ahead.
Penn State rumors dead. We're done. We're just done with that.
I don't even want. That's almost putting legitimacy back. But like, and Alex came on here and he put notes on the board a couple weeks ago. There was, yes, Penn State. Those writers got to do their job, and they're being told things, and just how it works at any program. But over in Tuscaloosa, there was
not a lot of
deader than dead. I don't know what the word is. It was never even alive. So. That's good pointing out there. But again, busy week ahead. The big rankings on Tuesday, like Mike alluded to, then it's the early signing period, and I'll continue to have full coverage on that as well. And then we'll get into the SEC championship and then the college football rankings that Sunday. So it's going to be a busy week, and we're going to keep it rolling. But Mike, you got something or good?
No,
I
was just adjusting my chair.
The office chair in the hotel room that's probably squeaking.
I think that we had a great middle eight in this show.
Yeah,
I think that we all did our 1/3, and we went 1-0.
What did the board say in the presser? Everybody freedom all together or something like
yeah,
that?
It said something. Freedom, something, everyone.
Together. Everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah.
And take that language is ties before the game.
And take that and enjoy your Sunday. Thank you, guys.